The FIA has responded to McLaren's claims regarding the process of Red Bull, and it seems like the Austrian team is now going to be more careful when it comes to accusing other rivals regarding the illegality of their cars. Ben Sulayem is reportedly on board to bring a penalty for any type of allegation made against a team if the accusation is proven wrong, and this can easily transfer to the process that Red Bull have been making regarding the water cooling process of McLaren's tyres. Can we see a more disciplined approach when it comes to these shade-throwing messages from Horner? And if so, how will Red Bull fight back if they are stripped away from talking whatever they want? There is no doubt about it, we are currently having a very anticipated season between the McLaren drivers and Verstappen, and at Red Bull are making sure to utilise everything they can to keep the Woking-based squad on their toes. When you don't have a clear advantage, it's obvious that you're going to use all types of methods to slow down your rivals, but in this case, it might be a bit over the red line. For example, Horner has gone on to accuse McLaren of using water to cool down the tyres, something that Pirelli suggested is impossible because the process of pumping water through the valves is just not doable at all. But instead of defending himself, Zak Brown has made a strong proposal. If you want to throw accusations like this around, then you need to back it up with your budget cap. Yep, you heard that right. Brown insists that any F1 team that throws shade or an accusation towards a rival should lodge a formal protest, and the amount of money regarding that investigation process should then be deducted from the budget cap of the team. If they're proven to be right, then the amount of money is returned to the budget cap, but if not, then the team will hopefully know better before they force themselves into another type of investigation. And interestingly enough, this is a proposal that has been accepted by Ben Sulayem. The controversial president of the FIA does seem to have some type of connection with Zak Brown, because this is not the only thing that they have unanimously agreed upon in the past. When talking about this, Brown went on to say, you cannot just accuse someone without a written complaint, and that protest, you have to pay money. Of course, Horner didn't go directly to accuse McLaren, because being in this sport for such a long period of time, you'd learn how to manipulate things in the way that suits your narrative, and Horner is doing precisely that. He's just suggesting that something might be out of the sporting regulation when it comes to the MCL 39, and they're suggesting it because of the thermal camera footage that is in their possession. When talking about this after the Miami GP race, Horner went on to say, in Formula 1, there are always going to be questions that are raised. They did exactly the same about the front suspension in our car last year, so it's inevitable when you're running at the front, as we have for the last few years, you always come under more scrutiny. That is part and parcel of Formula 1. In many respects, for the FIA, the teams, all of the teams, do the vast majority of the work because their resources are far greater, and there's always a competitor analysis going on across all of the teams. That is just part of Formula 1. According to Ben Sulayem, it's not precisely part of the sport when you are going out on a limb and throwing accusations left, right and centre. This is not the way things are conducted between professional F1 teams, and whether we like it or not, the situation needs to be addressed more properly and with genuine concerns from the teams who are starting this process. Obviously, we're going to see a lot of changes in the foreseeable future, but whether or not they will be motivated by a genuine wish to change the sport by Ben Sulayem, or just something that is keeping his agenda as president of the FIA alive, time will tell. It's not a secret that the presidency of the governing body is now under a big question mark, and Ben Sulayem might not live to see another day holding this position for a longer period of time because of the elections that are coming at the end of the year. Carlos Sainz Sr. has already expressed his wishes to run as president of the governing body, and the Rally Dakar winner has reportedly gained the trust of senior motorsport figures when it comes to his presidency. All of this goes to show that we might be in for a very interesting turn of events ahead of us, one in which Ben Sulayem might not survive as president. Still, the competition in the sport is what bothers us the most, and here we might struggle to see an anticipated season like the one we had last year. What is more than certain is that McLaren is in a league of their own, and this is something that we cannot predict in terms of longevity. Everyone is waiting for the Barcelona clampdown of the front wings, but the general belief is that the gap is just too big ahead, and that the MCL 39 will continue to be the standard setter compared to the rest of the grid. The problem is going to be in how the other teams will introduce competitive upgrades to catch up. Red Bull assisted both McLaren and Ferrari last year by failing their design from Miami onwards, which made it a lot easier for these two squads to catch catch up, but now the momentum is fully on McLaren's side, and we might be looking at a quite monotonous season in front of us. Still, Horner recognises that the advantage of the McLaren cars is primarily in the way they are managing the tyres, which is something that needs to be studied very well. Elaborating further on this, the Brit was self-critical in terms of how his team needs to approach this issue in the foreseeable future, adding, obviously, McLaren is the standout car. They had the kind of advantage that we saw a couple of years ago, and they are obviously doing a very good job in managing temperatures, and particularly, I think if you look at the end of the medium tyre stint, that was probably where they were the most competitive. So that is what we need to focus on. I think we had brake issues that have compounded the problem in the race, but that's what we need to understand. Apart from the FIA's claim that Red Bull needs to file an official complaint and pay for it in terms of budget cap deduction, there is another thing that we need to consider here as well: the criticism that McLaren has thrown towards their rivals in terms of them crying wolf on the field. We've been used to seeing Verstappen's teammates perform so poorly that a narrative was created around the four-time world champion. He is arguably extracting the absolute maximum from that car and is putting it where it has no business being. But Andreas Stella, the team principal of McLaren, is not buying these stories, and he feels like the difference between them is not that big. McLaren is the better team, but not by such a large margin, which is shown in the qualifying sessions as well. Elaborating further on this, Stella said, Red Bull are very good at making fast cars. They are exceptionally good at driving fast cars, and they are extremely good at creating the narrative to their advantage. They exploit every possible opportunity to stay in the competition. Like sometimes they create the narrative like, oh, we are making miracles here, the others should win every single practice, qualifying and race. But this is the narrative created by some of our competitors, which we read occasionally, but then we change the page and focus on ourselves. When we focus on ourselves, we look at the numbers, we look at the facts, we look at what we should be improving, and there is a lot that we should be improving. For me, when I look at the facts, I look at what Lando and Oscar have delivered, and delivered quite constantly. So yeah, well done to Red Bull, even in terms of the way they manage their non-technical opportunities. With all this in mind, the situation might get a bit more troublesome for the Austrian team, especially given the fact that the future of Verstappen is hanging on a thread. The four-time world champion could be exploring his options outside of Red Bull if the opportunity arises, and for that, he'd have to be outside of the top three drivers in the Drivers' Championship. Therefore, the team would have to do anything in their power, including these accusations towards the other teams, in order to keep the RB21 as competitive as it can be. So do you think that Ben Sulayem's claims regarding the penalties that need to be paid by the team starting a protest are legitimate? And more importantly, where do you see this saga ending? Let us know in the comments below, and once you do that, make sure to check out the video that's appearing on your screen right now.